This week, Faisal joins Sandler Training Canada at their 2022 regional meeting to share his insights on business, real estate, the Susiwala System, and success. Tune in for the full video.
A little background. In Cambridge, there's a few high schools. I went to Southwood. My brother went to GCI, which is where Faisal went. And he's in grade 12, and he goes, I'm going to go take a real estate course. And he takes that course, and then he goes, well, I guess I need to become a realtor. So he found somebody that was willing to take on a young person, and he's in his classrooms still doing deals. He had not graduated high school yet, and he started his career as an entrepreneur. Fast forward over 30 years, and the last 4 years, he's been the number one Canadian salesperson for ReMax, and he's been 5th out of 130,000 ReMax realtors. So that's his background. Very, very impressive. So my first question to you, it's like, what made you want to become an entrepreneur when you were 17 or 18 in grade 12?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Andrew, for having me here, and it's a pleasure being in this room with people who share a very similar philosophy to what I have my entire career. And before knowing a lot about Sandler, and Andrew shared a book with me, and reading the principles of what Sandler has, it was very relatable, and it really resonated with me. So again, it's an honor to be here amongst all of you. So let me get right into your question here. Yeah, so interesting. I was 17 years old watching late night television, and I'm going to date myself here a little bit. There was a gentleman on television with an infomercial, and the infomercial was about an immigrant who had come to this country, who had never been able to speak English, had no idea about real estate or investing, and his name was Tom Vu. Does anybody remember that name, Tom Vu? No, probably not a lot of people. So again, I've dated myself here a little bit. And he was sitting on this yacht with beautiful ladies, talking about his Rolls Royce and his mansions and the things that he has. And I'm thinking, I want to be that guy. So of course I'm like, what does he do? So he was selling a real estate course, and I'm thinking, okay, I can't afford to buy a real estate course, but I'll learn about real estate. And the local college in our town was Conestoga College. So I looked up any courses on real estate that I could find, and they had a summer program. So I was 17, took the summer program, and thought I'd learn about real estate, and it would be a cheap way to do it and get a credit at the same time. I had no idea that it would lead to licensing. So I was in a room full of people that were trying to get licensed to become realtors. So I thought, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. At the end, I wrote the course, and then they congratulated us, saying, okay, you can become a real estate agent now. I'm like, okay, well, let's give this a shot. I wrote my exam, passed, got my licensing courses done. And then a friend of mine in high school suggested that I go see his father, who worked for or owned a very large real estate franchise. And that was my first experience with proper rejection. They said, you're too young, you're too young, go back to school, 4 or 5 years, come back and see us. So I had walked from my high school, which was Galt Collegiate, downtown. It was maybe a 15-minute walk, and I was disappointed to hear this news. So I was waiting for the bus. I had no car. And while I was waiting for this bus, I recalled that there was a gentleman that had helped my father when he came to this country in 1973 to rent an apartment. I thought, I'll go see if Mr. Maneri is still around. And across the terminal, there was a little Royal Trust bank at the time. Above that was where his office was. So I went up the stairs, knocked on the door, and said, Mr. Maneri, I'm Sikander's son. And he welcomed me in. He remembered who my father was. And I said, I'd like to become a real estate agent, but I'm still in school. Is there any chance that you would take me on? Because you had to have a broker license you. And at that time he said, well, I'm 73, I'm about to retire, but I'll take you on for a few months and get you licensed and get you started. But after school, every day you have to be here. This was back in 1988. I was 18 years old at the time. And I'll tell you, that was the beginning of someone who mentored me. I was very grateful for the fact that I aligned myself with an individual who had great values, and he said, just do a good job. Don't think about the money, that will come later, but just do a good job, be honest, be fair with people. And that really stuck to me, and that's sort of the philosophy that I've had from day one. So first 2 months in school, in this career, I was able to sell just over $2 million worth of real estate. My earnings at that time were $60,000 in high school, which was a very fair amount of money back then. So being from an immigrant family, I went home to mom and dad and I said, hey, guess what? I'm going to be a real estate agent, and I had just been accepted at Laurier and a couple of other universities, and I said, I'm not going to go to university. Well, you don't say that to an immigrant family or to an Indian mom and dad who want you to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Those are your three options. So I said, no, this is what I'm going to do, and they, of course, fought me on it. They called my mom called her uncle, who was a professor of education at Brock University. And he drove down, his name is Richard Bond, and he came down and met with my mom and dad and said to my mom and dad, yeah, Hajar Sikandar, I agree, he should go to university. And I said, well, Uncle Richard, you don't understand, I'm doing really well. He goes, real estate's tough, it's commissions, you may not earn a lot of money. And I said, well, I made $60,000 already.
Which is more than needed.
Exactly. So he actually turned around and said to my mom and dad, he said, this kid's making more money than I am. Let him do what he wants to do. Now, of course, in '89 and early '90, the recession hit. And that recession would last 10 years. So great time to build character at that time. You figure it out. Lots of regret and sort of second guessing, did I make the right decision? But I persevered, and here we are today.
Excellent, excellent. And just as we all have had the opportunity to say, okay, how am I going to start my business? How am I going to staff my business? In my particular case, I recall in my 5th month trying to generate my 4th invoice to a customer. And I just said, after that horrendous experience with software and detail work, which I hate, I said, that's it, I'm not doing this. And I decided I need to hire somebody. And so I hired a virtual assistant that started to help my business. And from reading your book, I'm not sure exactly the duration, but I get the impression maybe the first 5, 8, maybe 10 years, you did everything yourself. You and your wife walking the streets at night, putting flyers in your target market area, until one day you decided, you know what, I need to walk down the hall, go see Jennifer. And Jennifer was ReMax's part-time administrative assistant, and you offered her a job, I think working 10 hours for you. And then if we fast forward, eventually he gets 3 administrative assistants, and he doesn't have any realtors that work for him, but he has 6 realtor partners, if I will, that he shares business with. So tell us a little bit about why did you make the decision to add staff to your team, and how did that help you?
So it was 2002. My son, who is here today, was just born, 6 months old at the time. And I thought, I have had a good career leading to that point. I had been in the business just over 14 years. And I had done everything myself. And I was really burning the candle at both ends. I was sales all day, administration all night, leveraging all of my time with marketing and whatnot. And I thought, this is not sustainable for me. I'm going to burn out. And I thought, okay, I just need somebody to come in and help me with paperwork. So it was, like you said, I offered Jennifer 10 hours a week. She's worked about 60 hours a week since. But it was interesting. And it was about doing what I was good at and delegating what I wasn't good at. It was about partnering with the right people that could excel at things that I knew that I wasn't able to excel at. My forte was sales and relationship building. It wasn't sitting behind a desk trying to figure out how to process deals and whatnot. So this was the delegation, and I started with 1 assistant, I added a second, I added a third, now I have 4. And then I started getting extremely busy with lots of buyers coming in. In our business, you can work with probably 20 to 25 listings where you have your sign on front of someone's lot. But to have 25 buyers or even 5 buyers, you're showing homes a lot, 5, 7, 10, 15 homes a day. So that eats up your time and doesn't allow you, and the generation of income and business is really happening on the listing end more so than on the buying end. So I then I created a referral network. So I became a lead generator to 6 agents that are in my office. And what I'm doing is I take the listings that I have to generate the leads. Now, if they want to see that specific home, I will show them that home. I will show that buyer that home. However, if that buyer wants to see 10 or 12 more homes before making a decision, I refer that to newer agents, hungry agents who have the time, who want and the drive to succeed, and I partner with those agents within my marketplace. Just like I would refer someone in, say, Vancouver or Quebec, I would refer them within my marketplace, but I refer them only as buyers to those individuals that are in my network. So I've created several branches off of my leads to allow them to generate business, allow them to succeed, allow them to market. So, when you come from a place of abundance and when you are willing to share and not restrict people from growing, it inadvertently helps you grow as well. And that has been really the secret to how I've grown my business to, last year I sold 462 homes. And I'm on track to do about the same. Last year, sold the most homes in the world. 462 homes, yes. So listed and sold, and that does not include what my buyers' agents are selling off of their own leads.
Faisal, doesn't the average, isn't it like there's only 10% of Ontario real estate agents sell more than 5 homes?
Yeah, so the average income in our industry is just over $30,000, and 5 to 7 homes is the average in Ontario. Yes, per year. Yeah. Now you have to remember there's a lot of individuals that are licensed in this business that are part-time, that have, and that's fine. I started as a part-time agent. I was a part-time student, right? So when you look at there's 130,000 agents worldwide just in the ReMax system. So you can imagine how many agents there are in the world, or how many there are in Canada. I believe there's just under 30,000 agents in the ReMax system in Canada alone. So it's not the 80-20 rule in our industry. It's really the 5-95. So 5% of the agents are actually doing extremely well, but those are the agents that have systems in place.
Right. And when I reference this next date, I think all of us will probably remember where we were on that date. I remember very clearly where I was. And some of us in Sandler have a strong military background, like 3rd generation submarine captain, Fleetwood over here. 9/11 was very instrumental for you, and I think a turning point in your already super successful career. Can you expand a little bit on why it was so important and what you've done since that time frame?
So again, in late 2001, September of 2001, my brother had bought us a trip to New York City. My wife was 6 months pregnant with my son, and we were in New York on a little shopping trip and touring and whatnot. We were had a reservation at the 104th floor of the World Trade Center on September 11th at 8:30 a.m. We never made that trip. I slept in. And this was something that you reflect on and you think, what was it that happened, or what is my purpose in life? And there's, you could call it spirituality, you could call it the universe, you can call it many things, but you think there's got to be a greater purpose when something like that happens. And there were 4 days that we spent in New York City because you couldn't leave or enter. Flights were canceled. And in that time, nothing was open. There were no distractions other than thoughts in your head as to what's going on. And it was a turning point in my life. you think, okay, my wife is pregnant, this child is to be born. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe I've got to do greater things in my life. Maybe I have to change certain things about myself. And that was the point where I started reflecting on a lot of things. I started reflecting on community. I started reflecting on just the universe and what it means to be a part of community and how you can give back and what you can do to enhance the lives of the people that are around you. And you take that mindset, and I talk about this in my book. You take your mindset and turn it to heart set. When you start thinking with your heart, you do better, and you start creating situations where people are going to be magnetic towards you. And you're becoming real with people. You're becoming genuine with people, and it's not about, an agenda that you have. And that's one of the things, even today, being here today, I said to Andrew, I just want to speak from the heart. I don't want to have a scripted presentation. And that's very important to me. And that's the way I do my business. It's you speak truthfully from your heart. But that was, certainly the major turning point in my life.
And so fortunate that you and your wife are with us today. One of the things in Sandler Training and helping clients learn how to sell more effectively is helping them to create what some of us would call gate selling. I call it creating a documented sales process. And we help our clients to think through the steps of interaction from hello to welcome Mr. and Mrs. New Customer. And then we overlay the Sandler selling system in their process. You've developed the Susiwala System. So can you tell us a little bit about how long did it take for you to realize your system, and was it trial by error? Did you have this epitome? Tell us a little bit about how you're able to create that.
Well, I wish I would have come up with the Susiwala submarine, like the Sandler submarine. That's it's interesting. I was reading about that and the parallels, really resonated with me. So when I approach a listing or I approach a client, it's very similar to that system. I walk in, and it's not about sitting down and having a sales pitch or a script ready to go. It's a conversation. I read a book by Robert Cialdini called Persuasion. And it's interesting. It's about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And what I'm doing, and I'm not doing this consciously, I'm doing subconsciously, I'm walking through the home, learning what the individual likes, dislikes, what their mannerisms are, what their sort of tone is going to be during our meeting. So that's just for me to listen. I'm not there to do a sales pitch, talk to people and give them a lot of information. I have my package, my presentation package, my comparables, what's listed, what has sold, what the market is doing. I've got all that in the folder. But very rarely am I diving deep into that and discussing what's in there. It's the conversation that's important. When I sit at the table, I am approaching every topic that I believe they've got in their mind, or every question that they've got in their mind before the question is asked. So we start with, talking about their home, we talk about the market, and I don't wait till the end to say, or wait for them to ask, what do you charge? And that's what was very interesting in the Sandler system about talking about budgets. That's right in the middle. I start explaining what the cost is going to be, but I lead that seller on a journey, and that journey ends with success. And when you lead someone to that journey, and when they can see themselves sitting at the offering table, having a successful sale in a short period of time at a value that meets or exceeds their expectations, you've already won at that time. So it's the journey, and showing the conclusion of that journey and the success of that journey is what resonates with people.
Excellent. And when we were sitting down at Starbucks on that nice sunny afternoon, you asked, do we teach psychology in the Sandler system, which obviously we do. And perhaps you might enjoy Brad's book on the psychology of sales. And in reading your book, I can tell, like us, you've educated yourself in numerous places in numerous ways. Why is psychology so important to you in working with people to help them achieve their real estate dreams?
I wish I actually had a psychology degree, because I would have understood this a long time ago. But it's just through processing what people's wants and needs are and their reactions to certain events and things. That's what it is. It's not sales. It's understanding people, and understanding psychology is part of that. So when you're dealing with clients, you're not dealing with products really. You're dealing with, you're not selling something. You're selling yourself, but you're not even selling. You're educating. You're informing, but you're learning. And especially when it comes to home sales, it's a home. It's not a house. You're in someone's home. They have to feel comfortable with you. They have to feel you're competent. You have to have the capacity to work with people and listen to what their needs are. And that's part of that whole psychology, is understanding what people's needs are and feeding those needs properly.
And you can see here, we've got some folks from out in Alberta, in Quebec. We've got some of our American friends here. Part of the Sandler organization is to get together regularly via Zoom, phone, and these conferences to share best practices and learn from one another. And clearly ReMax has been that for you. Can you tell us a little bit about, how ReMax has helped you become the person you are, and how you give back, and why do you give back to your ReMax organization?
So, when I started out in this business, as I mentioned, I started with a small individual company. I was not a brand at all, and I wasn't with a company that was branded. So ReMax, I was not the #1 agent, but at the time, and still today, ReMax was the #1 brand in real estate. And I thought, okay, I'm not #1. I'd like to be there at some point, but I'd like to work or associate myself with the top brand in my industry. And that's what brought me to ReMax. What that did was it gave me credibility. It gave me, I could walk into a listing presentation and say, listen, I may not be the top agent, but I work for the top company. And that gave me just that edge that I needed at the time. Giving back, really, it's not about giving back to ReMax so much as associating yourself with a company that gives back. So, when you're with a company that has social initiatives that contributes back to communities, and then individually as well, that's very important to me, to make sure that, the local community needs are met. Those are the communities that feed me. And it would be irresponsible not to give back to the hand that's feeding you. And that's one of the philosophies that I've had right from the beginning. And I really got that from my father when I was a young child. I came from a family that didn't have a lot. My father lost his right arm in an industrial accident in 1975. My mother walked miles to the factory. It's a true immigrant story where, we saw the struggles, yet when somebody would knock on the door of my home, my father would write a post-dated check, even if he didn't have the money, for 3 weeks, 4 weeks out, to help a little village in India that needed a well, or needed shelter, or needed orphans, needed a home. And it didn't matter. And my father would always say to my mom, well, they obviously needed more. They've come to our home to ask. And that's what resonated with me. And that's one of the things that I've always lived with. Like, you have to feed back to humanity.
And it's such a nice approach to share what you have. Within Sandler, over the last 6 or 7 years, I think we've published about 45 different books. And obviously, you've written a book, and thank you very much for sharing that book with everybody here today. I'm curious how you've used the book in your business, and what sort of book strategy you might share with others, as we might be able to use some of our books to build the brand and build the business.
I was often approached by a few individuals. One would be schools would ask me, you're a young person, there's a lot of young people that are sort of just, they don't have direction, they don't really fit into that box of go to university, get a job, they're not of that mindset, but they're having, pressures put on them. And again, being from an immigrant background, most of our parents came to this country to give us a better life, to give us education, and to fit into that sort of mold. But not everyone does that, as I didn't. So the book was really published. I had written the notes probably 10 years ago. I had started writing these notes. I really sat down. Unintended consequences of COVID was, I had lots of time on my hands, and I spent some time at the cottage 3 days a week for about 6 months, and from March till about September of 2020, and I started writing about my journey. So the beginning of the book really talks about getting started, the struggles that I faced. At the age of 19, I went bankrupt. I had partnered with foreign investors, and the investment wasn't going well. My name was on title because they were foreign. I had to put my name on title, and the responsible thing for me to do was stop the losses, to stop the bleeding that was happening during the recession. So I talk about those experiences because those sometimes you learn from your own experiences, and other times you learn from the experiences of others. And it was very important for me to share my experiences to give hope to those that may be struggling and thinking, okay, well, this is the end. And it's very easy to throw in the towel. And it's very easy to give up and say, this is not for me. But if you can really, look into yourself and say, are you passionate about what you're doing? Is this what you're meant to do? And it doesn't matter whether it's sales or if it's a job that you're doing. If you're passionate about it, you're going to succeed because that's in your heart. That's what your DNA is telling you. So the beginning of the book talks about that journey. The middle of the book talks about investment strategies, and it talks about building wealth and how to generate, generational wealth, and how to accumulate, and what strategies I've implemented in order to build a fairly extensive portfolio that not only will help me through my retirement, but will leave a legacy for my children and so on. And lastly, it talks about strategies for realtors or any business person that's coming into a business, and what sort of mindset they need to have and what kind of strategies they need to implement in order to have success. So I would be approached by realtors, I'd be approached by investors, and I'd be approached by, I speak at the local high schools quite often, just to inspire young people and give them some hope that, if you're not fitting that mold, it doesn't matter, there's other options.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. To reach the levels that you've reached, my guess is there were some significant steps or turning points along the way. As I look around the room here, there's many people very successful in Sandler, and like ReMax and Sandler, we have award levels that are based on revenue achieved within 4-month periods, and you can see when people have really stepped into a different zone or a different game. Can you share with us, what was your journey, and what were the significant elements that allowed you to really take a step up? Because to become top in the world is, there was a plan there, I have to believe.
Well, the systems where companies have award systems, I think it's genius because it gives you that drive to get to that next level, and that's what most entrepreneurs are motivated with. Well, where did it start? It started probably when I was 8 years old, and I was selling chocolate bars, and I sold the most chocolate bars in my public school, and I got all expenses paid trip to McDonald's, and and that was my reward, and I'll tell you, it was that was the seed that was planted. It's like, I want to be the best. And it didn't matter what it was, I wanted to be the best. And real estate gave me that opportunity. And then the award systems, especially with ReMax, you hit executive club when you have 50,000 in commissions. Then you hit platinum club 100% club when you hit 100,000 in commissions. Then you hit platinum club at 250. Then you hit chairman's at 500. Then you hit 750, you get Titan. Then you get diamond at $1 million. Then you get pinnacle at $2 million. Then you get luminary of distinction at 20 million gross commissions. And then, so it's like, okay, I gotta get the next award. I gotta get the next award. I got to keep getting that. And that's the wheel, right? That makes you sort of say, I want to be the first to get that award. I want to be in that elite category. And that's a driver, but it's not the only driver. It's, it it's not about the money. At some point, it's not about the money. It's about reaching your goals. And your goals are not necessarily related to material and financial. Your goals can be, how do I help my community? How do I help my family? How do I help others in need? How do I help others succeed? And watching others grow. And that's where the referral network that I have, it's very, very, it's very fulfilling for me to see young people coming into the business that I'm able to help and mentor and coach and give them systems that they can implement that help them grow. And then I see what they're doing with that. They're reinvesting back into their business. They're investing in real estate. They're helping elevate their community, their family, and their sphere. And that's where you're building such a huge benefit throughout a network.
And when I think about achieving the success that you have, yesterday one of the topics was around strategic business planning. Is that something that you've employed throughout your career?
Yes, in my book, at the end, I talk about the Susiwala System, and that's exactly what it is. It's what systems can you implement that are sustainable, that are replicatable, so that you can use that over and over again. And once you follow a system, and it's consistency, it's not a one-hit wonder sort of approach. When I started out, so I have never cold called, and I have never door knocked in my life, other than when I was selling chocolate bars at the age of 8.